Are you an international doctor considering working in Australia under the standard pathway? Well, in this video, I'll take you through all the steps to this process. I'll explain a little bit about the AMC certification process, provisional registration, and how to go about finding a suitable employer for your first position in Australia. Hi, I'm Anthony. I'm the career doctor. I make videos for other doctors on YouTube. If you're liking this video, please consider giving me a like below. If you're really loving the content, I'd really ask that you subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, don't forget, for this month of October, we're doing a giveaway where you can go in a draw to win one of 5 free CV courses. So check out the link in the description below. So this is a series for doctors from overseas to help them navigate the process of working as a doctor in Australia. So up front, we need to be very clear here. If you're a doctor from another country, gaining employment in Australia is not necessarily easy. In fact, for certain categories of doctors, it's become even harder recently with some changes that the government have put in place, particularly around things like general practice. As we've covered in a previous video, many international medical graduates are looking to secure work here through what's called the standard pathway to registration. So let's talk a little bit about this pathway in a bit more detail and go through the steps that you would generally go through. But before we do that, I just want to put another quick disclaimer out here. Like most issues related to registration and visas, it's important to get individual advice on your circumstances, as they may and do vary and change over time. And also, the interpretation can also change as well. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to engage with you in the comments below. So, under the Medical Board of Australia, as a doctor, you can be registered in the following ways. You can have general registration, which is great. You can have specialist registration, and if that's on top of your general registration, that's even better. You can have provisional registration, and you can have limited registration. If we're talking about the standard pathway, then you are looking to navigate a path towards obtaining a job where the first position you work in will be under provisional registration with a view to then gaining general registration. So provisional registration applies to doctors who need to complete a period of supervised practice in Australia before becoming eligible for their general registration. So this actually applies to local medical graduates as well as graduates from the 2 New Zealand medical schools who are completing their 12-month internship in Australia. So this is a point of confusion because many IMGs hear that what they need to do is get an intern position, and they get quite frustrated that they see that there are intern jobs going to local graduates. Even AHPRA and the medical board sometimes use the term intern in their information, which I think is a little bit unfortunate, because when we're talking about the jobs that you are going for, they're actually jobs that are often equivalent to intern roles, but they're usually called something else. And we do reserve intern positions in Australia for just those graduates of the medical schools. So provisional registration does apply to international medical graduates, ones that are eligible for the competent authority pathway, or as I said, those that are progressing through the standard pathway. Now, one important thing to know about provisional registration before we move on from it is this. The medical board can grant up to 12 months provisional registration. And that's pretty much what they do in most cases in the first instance, whether you're a local graduate or coming from overseas. Provisional registration can then be extended for another 12 months. And this can happen fairly often. Even with local graduates, sometimes the interns need a little bit more time to demonstrate that they can complete the required standard. Also, sometimes doctors are working part-time and need more time to complete this experience. Sometimes international medical graduates also require an extension if their supervisor reports indicate that they need more time to meet the standard to be assessed. It is extremely important to know that under the national law, provisional registration cannot be renewed for more than 2 times. After 2 renewals, if you still require provisional registration in order to complete your supervised practice, you must make a completely new application for provisional registration. Unfortunately, if you find yourself at this point, it is a bad sign, and it's quite possible that the board will deny your new application. But before you apply for this provisional registration category, there are quite a few other steps that you need to go through before you can. So step 1, The first thing is you must apply to the Australian Medical Council, the AMC. The AMC is a body that oversights a lot of things in Australia and New Zealand, including the accreditation of our medical schools and specialty colleges. Something else the AMC does is review the credentials and capabilities of international medical graduates. It does this via a process called the AMC certificate process. So, the first step is to apply to the AMC for this process, and there are a number of sub-steps to this step. There are links on the AMC website, but the key bits are, firstly, you need to check that your primary medical qualification, your medical diploma, is recognised by the AMC. Generally, it's one of those ones that is on the World Directory of Medical Schools, but there's a tool for checking this directly on the AMC website. The next thing is you need to create an EPIC account, an electronic portfolio of international credentials. That's a bit of a mouthful, and that is organised by the ECFMG, the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. So there's a website for that as well, and they kind of integrate with the AMC, so they provide information to the AMC. And so it's important when you do so, when you set up that account, you indicate that you intend to apply for the AMC process, and throughout engaging with the EPIC site and the ECFMG, let them know that you want all reports to go through to the AMC. That's very important. So when you have this ID, which takes apparently 2 to 3 working days to set up, you can then set up an AMC portfolio on the AMC website, and this takes another 3 to 5 working days apparently. At the same time, you should upload your qualifications to EPIC. And as I said, when you do, request that they send information to the AMC. I'm not sure what the actual time frame for verifying qualifications can be. I know from past experience it can take a while. There are also fees for registration with the EPIC system, as well as for them verifying things, and there may be additional fees from the institution that you're applying to be verified from. From what I can see, it's probably starting somewhere around $300 Australian. The AMC will then eventually be notified once your credentials are verified, at which point you are then able to proceed to the standard pathway process. This is then step 2. This is when you can proceed to engaging in the AMC certificate process, which is basically 2 examinations. So you select this option through your AMC account. Step 3 is to apply for, prepare for, and sit the AMC CAT MCQ examination. So CAT stands for Computer Adaptive Test, and MCQ is obviously multiple choice questions. There are, in each exam, the AMC sets the level of attainment to that of a newly qualified graduate in Australia. So equivalent to medical graduates from Australian medical schools. The AMC MCQ process tests knowledge of the principles and practice of medicine in the fields of general practice, internal medicine, pediatrics, psychiatry, surgery, and obstetrics and gynecology. It focuses on essential medical knowledge involving the understanding of things like the disease process, clinical examination and diagnosis, investigations, therapy, management. There's some helpful information, as I say, on the AMC website, including a bit of a breakdown on where they tend to focus in the exams. They have 150 questions in each exam, and you have 3.5 hours to sit it. There's a very handy booklet on the AMC website that takes you through a lot of this stuff in detail, including information about a bit of a syllabus for your study, some practice questions, and even some recommended reading resources. You do have to book your MCQ exam session, and you have to go to a location where it's secure and invigilated, so you can't just do it anywhere. But fortunately, there are lots of sessions available, generally February to November, both in Australia, usually Melbourne and Sydney, as well as overseas centres as well. Each month they run a session on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they often have Saturday sessions as well. Step 4. Okay, this is where you do have a few options. Once you have your AMC Part 1, once you've passed that MCQ exam, you can now start applying for jobs under the provisional registration process. But bear in mind, you'll now be competing with thousands of other doctors, both in and outside of Australia, who also have the Part 1 for these somewhat limited positions at times. So you can and should also attempt the second part of the certificate process which is basically a clinical examination, which is a set of OSCEs or observed structured clinical examinations. Passing the AMC clinical exam gives you a certificate which tends to bump you up in terms of the suitability for jobs, because they know that you've completed all those requirements. Because employers know that you've now completed all the AMC requirements, so all you really need to do is complete that satisfactory 12 months provisional registration. There is another option to sitting the AMC clinicals, but it is actually contingent on having a job in the first place. So there are certain centres that the AMC has accredited to conduct workplace-based assessment programs as an equivalent to the actual clinical exam. But as I said, you have to get a job there in one of those centres first. So depending on how you go with that, the fifth and final step therefore is to get a job which is suitable for someone going through the standard pathway process. So that's a job that has supervision for provisional registration, and generally that's what's referred to by the Medical Board of Australia as a level 1 supervised position, which means you get the most intense, generally direct and on-site supervision from other senior medical practitioners. So what do you do about finding an appropriate job? Well, in the recent past, there have been a couple of options. There's been the hospital route and the general practice route. The general practice route has become harder more recently, and really, if you don't have an extensive amount of experience in general practice or like settings, primary care, what have you, it really isn't probably an option for you anymore. So I might just skip over that route in this particular video. If there's lots of requests and likes and comments, I'm happy to come back and talk about that a little bit more in a future video, perhaps with an expert in that area. But for the last bit of the video, let's spend a little bit of time talking about how to find suitable hospital-based posts. And what I'm going to show you is some techniques for searching out some of these positions, but also for finding information on key contacts that you can approach for future job offerings as well. Okay, what we're going to do is hop online and now see if we can find some of these positions that are suitable for doctors coming through the standard pathway. So remember, you need to be looking for a position that's suitable for provisional registration. And the trick is that these positions are not immediately obvious a lot of the time. You may have to go into a bit of the detail to see if a job might be suitable for you. You may often be competing with other types of applicants, particularly just local graduates who are eligible for general registration. That may automatically knock you out if there's enough of them, because there is a rule where if you're an Australian citizen or permanent resident and you're suitable for the job, then other applicants cannot be offered the position. And sometimes what you're also looking to do is collect contacts for a later date, so you can stay in contact with people who might have some of these positions, so you know when there might be a job opening available. In a previous video, I talked about the fact that at certain times of the year, you're more likely to find opportunities. You won't find them through the middle of the year where they're focusing in on what's called the annual medical recruitment. You may find them after that period's finished, around about now till sort of end of September, October, November, where there may be vacancies and attempts to fill in gaps, rosters for the next year. And you may find opportunities in kind of the late February, March, April period where people start to drop out of positions, and again they're trying to fill them before the annual medical recruitment kicks in again. So we're going to have a look for jobs in a few places. So what I would recommend you do is you can look at the hospitals, but generally speaking, most of the hospitals now are piggybacking off the state's job application portal. So most of them will be advertising through either the New South Wales recruitment system or the Victorian recruitment system or the Queensland recruitment system or the Tasmanian system, etc, etc. So why don't we go and look at Victoria. Now, if you go to Vic Health, so you just type in Victoria Health Jobs, you will probably find the portal for Health Jobs Victoria. So this is based around Melbourne, the second biggest state by populace in Australia. And you can see here, this is similar for a lot of these portals. You can sort of refine your search down to things like medical jobs, regions, etc. Remember also, in a past video, I've talked about how you should look outside of the larger cities, so the regional areas, the rural areas. So Northern Metro, Southern Metro, Western Metro is Melbourne, as is Eastern Metro and CBD and inner suburbs Anything outside of that is outside of Melbourne. So Barwon's around Geelong, which is sort of west of Melbourne. Gippsland's kind of close to the New South Wales border. Those sort of areas are probably where the job opportunities will arise in regional cities, rural areas, etc. So we might just do a quick search on medical to see what's here at the moment. And you can see there's a list of jobs, 3 pages long. We can sometimes go down into categories here. So you basically want to avoid anything that looks like a specialty or a specialty trainee position. So anaesthetics would be out, fellows would be out, gynecology would be out, clinicians probably in, psychiatry, registrars, that's the training role, so that would be out as well. Physician, it's probably a physician training program. So medicine might be okay. So why don't we just pop that and have a look and see what we've got here. Okay, so we've got some hospital medical officer, that's what HMO stands for in Victoria, available, and we can see these are all in rural areas. Now the one at Wimmera is out because that's for an advanced ASIM, that's the Australian College for Emergency Medicine. ONG stream, that's obstetrics and gynecology GP, that might be in, as might be this general stream here. So why don't we just have a look at this general stream around Ballarat, which is one of those regional cities in Victoria. So we'll click on this one and we'll look through the description. So offering a number of HMO positions in the PGY2+, so second year graduate. So just above intern, which is what I was saying, these are some of the positions you sort of look for to target. You can see some of what the role will be about. Now, down the bottom here it says, all applicants must be registered with the PMCV HMO match. So that's the Postgraduate Medical Council of Victoria, who organise a match in Victoria for all these jobs. So if we want to see whether they're eligible for this, then we probably need to go check there. There is a position description link, so we might want to just look at that. And that gives me a tell me more. Now, a lot of these things you've got to register before you get the position description. So it's basically, that's essentially the same information we saw there. You may be able to find some more information by clicking apply now. Yeah, so that we would have to register in the system to sort of go further with that. But we can go to the Postgraduate Council, so PMCV, HMO match. And I know, because I'm familiar with all these sort of things, that this will probably give us some information that tells us that we are not actually able to apply for this particular position, because you'll see here there's a bit of information on the front page about registering for this system. This is part of the annual medical recruitment system, and we might just click on here because this would be the one that you would probably apply for, because you're not eligible for internship, you're not eligible for physician training, specialty training, etc. So now here's a candidates guide, so we might click on that. Also useful here is an intern and HMO hospital directory. So remember I was talking about how you might be able to find useful information about places you can contact. So here is one for Victoria. So this has got information about all the places that interns and residents work in. These are the types of jobs that you're trying to look for, filling in gaps in those sort of roles. And look, we've got a contact for Albury-Wodonga. We've got a contact for Alfred, that's in Melbourne. You've got a contact for Austin, also in Melbourne. Lots of details there. Bairnsdale, which is in the Gippsland, so there's a contact there as well. So these are the sort of people you need to start, even trying, if you're in Australia, trying to get a meeting with face-to-face, to put a friendly face to the fact that you're interested and would be keen on any suitable opportunity that might come up. So that's useful. Here's the guide though, and I know from reviewing all this stuff before, they will tell us basically eligibility criteria on page 5, and it's not going to be good because the following persons are eligible to participate in this match: an Australian trained permanent resident, graduate of interstate medical faculty, temporary resident, graduate of Victoria, etc., etc., New Zealand medical graduates, international medical graduates who will complete 12 months of workplace-based assessment on the competent authority pathway. Important information for international medical graduates: if you do not have general medical registration in Australia, or will not have it by this date, you're not eligible to apply. So you have to have completed the AMC process, you have to have permanent residency or citizenship, and you have to have unconditional general medical registration or on the pathway. So if you're already in, you can apply for these positions next year. But essentially already on the pathway, through standard pathway, provisional registration to general. So that's out. So that's like an example where you can find information, you can see where the jobs are advertised. As I said, sometimes it's slim pickings, but you can see, then you can collect also contacts that might help you out. Now I do happen to know that if we go to Queensland, there is one position being advertised at the moment. So again, when we're doing Queensland Health Jobs, we go to the top link there, we search for current job vacancies. They all have kind of common looking portals where all the hospitals advertise. And then we want to search for, in occupational group here, health medical, search, and I might just put a maximum salary here. That might help us refine it down a bit. So here it is, the job that I found before. This is in Wide Bay, which is a little bit north of Brisbane. On the coast though, nice part of the world, around Bundaberg. And so this is for senior house officers or junior house officers. So junior house officers is like the resident medical officer or the hospital medical officer or the intern. So we just go down here, and so we have the role description here, which will probably be the one that we need. That will give us the eligibility criteria. Here is the eligibility criteria. So 2 temporary full-time positions for up to 12 months, key responsibilities, etc., etc. Qualifications: mandatory possession of a medical qualification, highly desirable qualities, APRA general or provisional registration. So highly desirable. So there you go. So remember, and again, I've done another video on the difference between essential and desirable. So desirable is we'd like to have it, but it's not going to knock you out automatically. So this is a type of job where they may be open to an applicant who is eligible for provisional registration. And so that means you have to have your AMC Part 1 at least. So this is the sort of job that you may be able to apply for that will help you get that 12 months supervised provisional registration experience, which hopefully you'll pass satisfactorily, which, if you complete both components of the AMC process, will mean that you can get to general registration. And then you're eligible for a whole bunch of other jobs, some of which is dependent on whether you're on a visa or maybe you're lucky enough to have citizenship or permanent residence. So that's how to look for suitable jobs for provisional registration for the standard pathway. So there you go, that's the process for going through the standard pathway to becoming a doctor in Australia. Question time. Have you applied for one of these provisional registration jobs in the past? What was the response from the employer? Did you end up applying for the wrong job? Did you get a runaround? What sort of tips and techniques might you offer for fellow doctors who are going through this process? Leave a question or a comment below in the description box. Also, don't forget, for this month of October 2018, we are giving away some CV courses. So 5 lucky viewers can win one of these CV courses just by clicking on the link in the description below and entering into the giveaway process. So once again, thank you for watching. If you like this video, leave a like. If you love what you're seeing, please subscribe and turn on notifications, and I will see you in another video.